Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal on Saturday. It is match day, Arsenal's first away game of the new Premier League season. And what a tricky looking away game it is. Aston Villa at Villa Park a little bit later on today, 5:30 p.m. kickoff. Revenge, certainly you would hope or think, on Arsenal's minds, given what happened against Aston Villa last season. So we're going to look ahead to that game in today's show. Of course, I'll go through my predicted 11 for that. Got some reaction from you guys in terms of what you want to see as well. But before we get onto that, I just want to talk a little bit about a couple of transfer stories that are, of course, doing the rounds as we head into the final week of the transfer window. Mikel Merino, who is on his way, well, he's in London now, but travelled from Spain yesterday, complete that move to Arsenal. But more importantly, Fabio Vieira, who this is a really interesting one, I think. Now, in our show that I did with Team News and Ticks earlier on in the week, he was saying that he'd heard that Fabio Vieira could well be going out before the end of the transfer window. And he has been proven right, of course, with the news yesterday reported by David Ornstein that Arsenal have now sanctioned a loan exit for the season for Fabio to go back to Porto, where, of course, Arsenal signed him for what, 30-odd million pounds just a couple of years ago. Now, I think this is a really, really interesting story in terms of what it means. You know, I think it's I spoke about this with Team News and Ticks on the show when he was talking about what he'd heard about Vieira. I just feel like this is a risk for Arsenal unless they do something in the next week. And of course, they've got 6 days or whatever is left now to do something and to add another player. And, I know I've seen your comments. I've got the same hope that the fact that they're letting Eddie Nketiah go, they've let Emile Smith Rowe go, they're letting Fabio Vieira go, they're potentially going to let Reece Nelson go. If they're going to do all that, then you think they really do need to sign a new player. And I know loads of people have been saying, well, look, Vieira and Smith Rowe between them had 5 starts last season. So it's not like they're taking a massive chunk of playing time out of the squad by sanctioning these moves. And, that is right. And it's right to point out. But they are still 2 senior players in the squad. They are 2 attacking options in the squad that now Arteta no longer has. And if any sort of injuries start to bite in that attacking third this season, then the likes of Smith Rowe and Vieira would have been called upon, but now they're not here. So they can't be called upon. And so I think this one, even though, look, Fabio has not lit it up since he's arrived. It's fair to say it's been a pretty disastrous signing so far. I think he's a decent player, Fabio Vieira. We've seen flashes of him that he's a very high quality player with lots of potential. I think he'll do well in Porto. From his point of view, I think this is a good move, because he wasn't going to play much for Arsenal this season. He needed to go out and play regularly, get his confidence back, and hopefully he can go to Porto if this deal goes through. He can get 40 games under his belt this season. He can show why Arsenal were so convinced in him to spend the sort of money that they did. So I think it's a good move from him. But from an Arsenal point of view, I'm a little bit worried. And I think it's a big call. I think it shows the faith that Mikel and the club have in Ethan Nwaneri, because there's no doubt about it that, Nwaneri and Vieira would be competing for game time this season as one of the first or second reserves for some of those players in the attacking third. And I think it shows a lot of faith in Ethan, which is a good thing. It's what we've always wanted. Everyone always said, he doesn't give youngsters a chance. The fact that he's letting Vieira go is a clear sign that Ethan Nwaneri is going to get minutes this season. He's going to get a chance to impress in the first team. And that's good. But I still think Arsenal are light. Before Vieira went, I felt like they needed to sign another player in that sort of final third. We've seen him playing on the right-hand side a lot in pre-season, the start of this season, towards the end of last season. At times when he did, in the rare appearances he did get on the pitch, he was playing on the right-hand side, basically as a Bukayo Saka alternative. And now that's not there anymore. And Arsenal are already weak on that sort of side. So I really hope that this is being done in preparation for making a sign in the next 6 days. It just does worry me a little bit, I have to say. So from players' point of view, I think it's a really smart move. I think it's the best move for him, and I think it will do him the world of good. From an Arsenal point of view, it just leaves me a little bit concerned about the options Arsenal have. If something happens to Martin Odegaard now, I think Vieira was probably the player who would come in straight away to fill any sort of void left from Martin Odegaard. Would he be able to step up and fill his shoes? From on evidence we've seen so far, probably not. But he would have been that option, I would say. Now he's not there anymore, so you basically going straight to Ethan Nwaneri, a 17-year-old kid, to fill the void left by Martin Odegaard. That just feels a little bit of a risk to me. So let's see what happens in the final week of the window. But it's an interesting one. Let me know your thoughts on it. Quite a few have already got in touch, and I'll just bring up a few of your comments now. Here's one from Aaron who says, Charles, after the news of Vieira being loaned out to Porto, my thoughts on Arsenal not signing an attacking player this window has changed. Before the news, I had similar ideas with you that it would be kind of disappointing, but it wouldn't be regarded as a failure or a flop. But with Vieira and Nketiah seeming to go out now, and possibility left for Nelson as well, not signing an attacking player this window should be regarded as a failure or a mistake. We are now so short of attacking options up front, and we still lack that attacking pace or making something out of nothing. I do believe the club has ideas and plans stacked up while allowing Vieira to go out on loan, but we have 1 week less. Unless something like Party Saga happens with Nico Williams, I'd be very surprised if Arsenal can go out and sign someone in such a short space of time. The club seem to have high faith in Nwaneri, and I hope he performs way over our expectations, but signing an attacking player looks more essential than optional. Now, I do agree with what you're saying there, Aaron. Adi Bayer there says, with Vieira moving to Porto, is this Arteta saying he's definitely going to give Nwaneri a shot at the first team football? And what are your thoughts on not having a backup for Odegaard? Because I do feel he's our most important player. Yeah, I mean, the lack of backup for Odegaard is a concern. I mean, there is no standout player in that squad to come in and do what Martin Odegaard does. It's hard because he's one of the best players in Europe. But you would hope there was more of a, if you would hope if you went out and you missed 4 or 5 games, you kind of in your mind you wish you'd want someone who you knew would come in and replace him. I don't really know who that is right now in this Arsenal squad to fill the void left by Odegaard. I would have said Vieira. That's obviously not going to be the case anymore. So, and with Vieira moving to Porto, is Arteta saying he's definitely going to give Nwaneri a shot in the first team? As I just said, I think so. I think it's a clear sign of faith in Nwaneri, but you don't want to put too much pressure on a young kid's shoulders. And as much as I love what I've seen from Ethan Nwaneri now, he's got to be protected a little bit as well by having other senior options around him. And I just think Arsenal, as Aaron is saying at the top there, they just look a little bit short. And I think if this is what they're going to go into the first half of the season with, if there's no significant sign in the attacking third between now and the end of the window, it's definitely a risk in my view. So that's my thoughts on that. One player, of course, coming in, and this is obviously linked to the Vieira departure as well. The fact that Merino is coming in and Vieira is going out. That's kind of the two of being linked because Merino's arrival is viewed as going to stop Fabio getting the sort of minutes that he needs to play. And I understand that, but still Fabio, as we've seen from him recently, he's been playing out on the right-hand side of the attack. He can play as a right-sided 8. Merino is very much a left-sided 8. So I don't really buy that argument too much. It's fantastic news. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the picture here of him already decked out in his Burberry London t-shirt on his way to London. This was a picture taken from the airport yesterday. He was also pictured saying his goodbye to Real Sociedad's staff before making the move to London. Obviously, he's not going to be involved today in the game against Villa Park. I don't know when the transfer is going to be announced. Knowing Arsenal, it will be in about a year and a half's time when it comes to actually announcing the transfer. Obviously, that's in jest. It will be at some point this week. But he's not going to be involved in the game against Villa today. Maybe we'll see him make his debut off the bench against Brighton in a week's time. But fantastic news that this one is now absolutely coming to a conclusion. It's taken long enough to complete, but great news that he is now headed to London and will be completing his medical over the coming weekend. Right, turning attentions to today's game, which is obviously a big, big one for Arsenal. Some training shots for you there on the screen. You've got Zinchenko and Timber, which is a big decision Mikel Arteta has to make in terms of left-back. Bukayo Saka looking all happy with himself during training yesterday. Team news-wise, Arsenal looking in good shape. Obviously, there were slight concerns over Declan Rice towards the end of the game against Wolves last week, but he's fine. He's been training all week. Fabio Vieira was training yesterday. He was a doubt going into this game. Obviously, he's not going to play now because of what's going on with Porto, so he's not going to be part of the matchday squad. Other than that, Arsenal looking in good shape. Aston Villa as well, unchanged squad from what Unai Emery and Villa are reporting from their game against West Ham last weekend. No Tyrone Mings, obviously he's out of an injury, someone else, a long-term injury, but no fresh injuries from their game against West Ham at the weekend. So they're going to be unchanged. And it's a really, really big game for Arsenal, really tricky game as well, as we spoke about yesterday. The left-back situation, as I was saying, it's a big call. Now I'm going to go through my predicted 11 now, and this is what I think Mikel is going to probably do today. It's not what I necessarily would do. It's what I think Mikel's going to go for. So this is my predicted 11. I think he's going to stick with Zinchenko. I was looking at what he was saying yesterday in the press conference as well about Timber and fitness. I'd be playing Timber. If I was confident Timber could give me 60, 70 minutes, I'd be playing Timber for this game. I think he's probably going to go with Zinchenko. So I'm going with an unchanged team from the side that played against Wolves last weekend. So Raya in goal, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Partey, Odegaard, Rice, Saka, Havertz, Martinelli. There obviously there's some decisions for him to make, the left-back one in particular. I just feel like he'll probably go with Zinchenko if he has any doubts. And from what you were saying in his press conference yesterday, it just made me think there was some slight doubts over Timber's fitness to start a game. I know there was criticism of Partey's performance, but I think he starts with Partey. I know there's some people are predicting Havertz might come back into midfield and Jesus might play up top. I don't really see that. I think it will still be Partey, Rice and Odegaard. Obviously, the left-sided attacking spot, Martinelli or Trossard. Martinelli got the nod against Wolves. Didn't have a fantastic game, but with the way that Villa play and that high line that we're always focusing on when it comes to Aston Villa, just feel potentially Martinelli might get the nod over him for this one. So unchanged team. That's my predicted 11. The side I would probably go for that side, but I would have Timber at the left back if I'm doing the 11 that I would go for this game. But it wouldn't be too different to what I think Mikel will probably go for. This is what some of you have been saying ahead of it. Nostradamus says Raya, Timber, Gabriel, Saliba, White, Rice, Partey, Odegaard, Jesus, Saka, and Havertz with the second half impact subs of Martinelli, Trossard, Jorginho, Zinchenko, and Calafiori. So Jesus on the left there. That's what Nostradamus would go for. This was an interesting one, and a few people have said this in the comments. I just want to bring up. Lizario says, I'm sorry, Charles, but a draw would be unacceptable. We have to win at Villa Park for a few reasons. City have already won at Chelsea, where they dropped points last season. We must pick up points where we failed to last season as well. Villa are the main reason why we lost the league. They beat us twice, beating us a third time, and not do well on confidence of our team. Peddling off the point of off point two, starting the season with an away loss to a team that made you lose the title sets a horrible tone for the fans and players. We have Spurs and City away after that. We could be in for a long season with a loss. I agree with the fact, look, you don't want to lose this game 100%. I don't quite agree with what you're saying at the very top there, where you say that a draw would be unacceptable. I don't see, and I know we live in a world now, we live in a Premier League era of Manchester City where a draw feels like a defeat at times. I know that. I understand that. But I'm still not quite in a position where I would look at a draw away to a team that finished fourth last season, that had an unbelievable home record, that beat Arsenal last season, that beat Manchester City at home last season. I'm still not quite at a point where I would say that a draw at Villa Park would be unacceptable. I agree, it's not ideal, and I absolutely, Arsenal want to be winning this game, and that is the ambition. But I'm not quite at the stage where I could sit there and look at a draw away at a team like Villa at the moment at Villa Park and say that's an unacceptable result. I couldn't label it at that yet, but others have. I understand that. I've seen it in the comments. John says, don't go by last year's performance. Villa looked like a mid-table team against West Ham. We were all over Wolves. I'm going to 4-0 for us. We will get them on the break with long balls over the top repeatedly. Martinelli, Saka, Havertz and Rice. I would take that all day long. John, I'm not quite sure I agree that they look like a mid-table team against West Ham. I thought the first half, from what I saw anyway, against West Ham, they were very, very good and could easily have been out of sight before West Ham had kind of handed their equaliser with that penalty. Okay, just quickly now, I don't know if you've seen these quotes or not. Mikel, obviously, in his embargoed section from the press conference last night, so the stuff that went out at 10:30 p.m., a few things to talk about there. Some of the comments basically seems like he's ruling out signing a striker between now and the end of the window. I've not been expecting a striker to arrive anyway, but this is what he was asked. This is what he said when he was asked about whether Arsenal will sign a striker. He said it's not a question that we've put to ourselves because we have great strikers. Gabby Jesus is there. Kai has played there lots of minutes. Leo has played there. We believe that we have other necessities as well, and we fully trust our players. Last year, we scored the most goals in the history of this club. We want to get better for sure, and we'll try, but we'll try with the players already with us. So looks like he's ruling out signing a striker between now and the end of the window, which I know will disappoint a few people. The one thing I'd say about that is they did try and sign a striker in this window in Benjamin Sesko. So when he says it's not a question we've put to ourselves because we have some great strikers, so well, you kind of did because you tried to try and sign a striker earlier on in the window. So, and you always have to take what Mikel says about transfers with a little bit of a pinch of salt. But I have to admit, I'm not expecting a striker between now and the end of the window, but who knows? And asked again about his contract, he was asked, should fans be worried that you haven't signed one? He said, I don't think that anybody has to panic. I'm in a place where I want to be and I'm really happy. Hopefully the club thinks the same. They do. And the players I work with, who in my opinion are the most important ones. So another sort of clear sign from Arteta there that he's going to be signing his new contract soon. On Emile Smith Rowe, he was asked about, was he sad about having to leave Emile out? And it wouldn't be an Inside Arsenal show, would it, without me talking about Emile Smith Rowe, even though he's not at the club anymore. So I had to flag up these comments. He said, when I had to talk with Emile, I really felt it. First of all, because I have huge gratitude because he came into the team at a tough moment. I think he was the player that made our supporters and the team click in a way. I don't know how to explain it, but that was my feeling. Something changed when he came into the team. He created a different energy straight away. And I have a feeling like, that I did not get the best out of him. Obviously, a lot of things happened in that time. From my side, it was really sad because I know how hard these boys, I know how those boys feel when they're in that building, how hard everyone works to get close to the first team. So I have a huge responsibility to give them the chance. And now, can they sustain the level and make us better? That's the idea. He's talking about homegrown players there. And I absolutely get what he means there when he talks about Emile and why he was the player more than anyone almost who made the supporters and the team click when he came into the team. And he did. That was what's so special about him. That's why I and so many other people hold him in so much high regard. So that's what Mikel had to say about Emile Smith Rowe's departure. And just finally, before I go, Jack here has got in touch and says, hey, Charles, with Celtic potentially getting a windful of money from O'Reilly and Kyogo, do you think that they might make a swoop for Tierney? Obviously, the injury might be a problem and they have to take a pay cut. Rogers has been a fan, and I imagine it'd be a dream return home. I'm sure Kieran would love to go back to Celtic at a point when he's already mentioned at times that he would love to go back to Celtic. I just think, and I don't know, and I've not seen it reported elsewhere, so I don't think anyone knows the full extent of Tierney's injury at the moment. And as I said in a video, I don't know, a few days ago when someone asked about Tierney, if he's going to be out for the first sort of 6 weeks after the transfer window, no one's going to go near him in the first half of the season. It just wouldn't make any sense. So I've always felt like Tierney will end up back at Celtic. I don't know when. And yes, obviously they've got a lot of money coming in from a couple of departures at the moment. O'Reilly on his way to Brighton for a Scottish record transfer fee as well. But I just think at the moment, until we know the full extent of that injury, I'd be surprised that any club at this point takes a punt on Kieran Tierney. I think January is probably the earliest, but we'll see. Maybe if he's back within a few weeks after the window, maybe someone will take a bit of a gamble on him, but we'll have to wait and see on that. And that's it from me, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. As always, enjoy the game later on today. I'll try and do a show afterwards going through my player ratings, so keep your eyes peeled from that. And if you want to get involved in tomorrow's show as well, come back, reply to the comments in this video with your reaction to the game, who impressed you, who didn't, and I'll pull some of those together and get them included in tomorrow's more in-depth reaction show. Have a good Saturday, everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.